Got some more heat treat. This time 440 degrees. I was shooting for 425, but since it's not an exact science, I got 440. So yeah, it sat at 440 for 2 hours, and it got darker, a lot darker than last time, which is interesting because with this Coastal Plains chert, I'm going to try heating this near an open fire because it changes color if it's working, right? So some of these other cherts I have, especially some of these Texas cherts, well, a lot of these Texas cherts, they don't change color. So it's hard to tell if it's working. You just got to put like a piece of meat next to the rocks. If it's cooking the meat, then it's at the right temperature, you know, basically. I do have a heat sensor gun where I can aim it at the heat source and it'll show me how hot it is. I do have one, so I can use that as a backup. But I want to get used to doing it in the quote-unquote primitive way around the fire. I haven't done it lately because it's been very windy. It's kind of cold out. If there's any slight draft when it's cold out, it'll crack the stones because they're out in the open. Alright, so I started already. I cheated before the video and I started napping already. The naps really well, so that's the good part. It naps really well. So let's dive in and nap something else. This Cortex is interesting because it's not like a lot of the Texas Cortex. I'll show you. See this Cortex here? This usually has a bunch of cracks underneath. So this Coastal Plains stuff does not. Now, I don't know if it's because this was dug up from the ground and this was a surface find or what, but I'm finding that the Coastal Plains doesn't have these kind of issues near the Cortex like a Texas chert would in many cases. Not all Texas chert is like that. But in many cases it is. The only thing about the Coastal Plains stuff is the pockets of concrete are basically limestone. So it doesn't respond to heat. The Texas concrete, sometimes it improves a lot with the heat, so you can nap through the concrete. But with this stuff, if you have a pocket of whatever inside like this kind of stuff, I don't think the heat treat affects it too much, so it's still hard to nap through. But as I nap more and more of this, I'll know for sure if the heat treat doesn't do anything to it. So far, it looks like the heat treat doesn't do much to those inclusions that look like limestone. So yeah, it's napping well. Hope I don't snap it. Yeah, some of you guys tell me how rare this stuff is. Is it really rare? I see it all the time at nap-ins, but that doesn't mean anything. I would assume it's not that rare, but it could be very rare. Just let me know. If it's easy to get, I think I might want to nap a lot more of it. I'm liking it quite a bit. The reason why I ask is if it's rare and I start liking to nap it, I tend to spend a lot of money on it, and I don't want to do that. Like a Brazilian agate heat treat is very nice to nap, but highly expensive. So I never really got into napping it because I don't want to get into something that's really expensive. Same with Mookite jasper from Australia. Expensive stuff. So I think it does sell well, right? You make items from Mookite jasper and they'll sell well. But the investment, it's a high level of investment. And I'm kind of a high risk napper, so I snap a lot of stuff. Anyway, in preparation for this particular day, I was doing a lot of internet surfing, watching videos. Yeah, I'm getting a little burnt out on the archaeology thing. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start doing a lot more art pieces. I mentioned that before. And cool it on the archaeology stuff. Unless I'm answering a specific question, I can do that. But as far as in-depth long videos on archaeological stuff, I don't think I'm going to do those anymore, or very much of that. I'm getting a little burnt out. A lot of false information on the internet, a lot of confusion, a lot of fairy tales, so to speak. A lot of heated debate, right? So I'm getting a little tired of it, so. We shall see. I spent a lot of time doing research and I got nothing to show for it, really. So I could be spending my time more wisely. So what am I going to make? Well, I'm probably just going to make a blade for now. Yeah, I've already got points made. I need to finish this one out. No. I'm going to include this in the broken bifaces. Yeah. Okay. Where's my other biface? I'm going to offer this one just like this. I'm not going to nap the larger pieces. I'm going to nap the smaller pieces for myself. I'm going to get rid of these so that you guys can mess with the larger pieces. I gotta make sure I mark them or something. Mark them at 440 somewhere. When I offer them in the auction, heat treat to 440. Fahrenheit. Always got to mention that. Fahrenheit, not 440 Celsius. Yeah, typical newbie mistake there. Just not preparing the edge for that particular strike. I was reviewing my videos. I tend to post my videos before I review them. My last video I got a little notice on my video that it's not appropriate for the advertisers. Yeah. Content, I got a content flag or something like that on the last video, and I was reviewing it, and I was like, what in the world could it be on that last video with the Duncan point that would be flagged for content inappropriate for advertising? I bet you there's still ads on that. I don't think I'm getting revenue off of that one. So yeah, I was reviewing it. There's a few chuckles on that one. Yeah. Maybe YouTube doesn't have a sense of humor. I was doing a little research on that Chat GPT. It's interesting stuff. I was thinking of getting downloading the app and seeing how it is. It appears to be not free after 30 days. I'm wondering how much it costs. Is it like one of those highly expensive programs? Probably is. Probably is highly expensive. I've got I used to have an AutoCAD subscription. That gets kind of expensive year after year. So I let it lax. I let it slide. I haven't worked on AutoCAD in years, right? At least 2 years. And before that it was another few years, so I intermittently get back on to see if I still know how to do it. Yeah, I still know how to do it. It doesn't leave you. After doing AutoCAD for so many years. Yeah, I get rusty and forget certain commands, but after a while, you only use a handful of commands basically for 90% of your work. So once you refamiliarize yourself with those basic commands, the fancy stuff, you can refresh your memory with tutorials as you go along, as you need it. Alright, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, Chat GPT subscription. I'm wondering how much that is. I bet you it's way too expensive for the normal person just looking to see what kind of help it could give you, because it answers questions like Siri, right? You can ask it questions and it'll answer, but it'll help you write code or check code. It'll check the code for you, see if it actually works. That's what I hear. I started to learn how to do code back in the day, but it wasn't my thing. I would fall asleep during those classes. Of course, we weren't learning code to do anything interesting. Just basic exercises. Pretty simple stuff. When I was in college, it was the 90s, so not much going on at that time. Who knows, I might be missing out. Might be a lot more interesting these days. Anyway, it's a different type of skill. I prefer something like Flintknapping because it gives you more of an idea of how our brains developed over time as humans. It answers basic questions about who we are as life forms. Who are we? What did we develop into? And what caused us to develop the way we are? For example, it also gives you insight into certain philosophical questions. Gives you some practical answers. Like what, you might ask? Let me see. Probably will say, make sure it's related to Flintknapping now. Don't go off on a tangent. Yeah, I'm thinking. A lot of questions on free will or whatever, right? Determinism, autonomy, there was a time where I really couldn't figure out if determinism was a thing, a real thing or not. There are systems that are deterministic, but determinism in general, and a lack of a free will in general, generally speaking, those things, according to how I've experienced life, do not exist. Determinism does not exist, and the lack of free will does not exist. And yeah, Flintknapping helped me to arrive at that conclusion. One of the basic principles is, given the exact same choice, one way or the other, determinism doesn't tell you which one you're going to make. It wants to make both. Because every reason to make one choice is the same as the other choice if the choices are identical. So which one is chosen? Determinism doesn't tell you that because they're both identical. They're identical choices, so which one do you choose? Every reason to choose one is the same as the reason to choose the other. And if you say, well, determinism made you choose that one, how do you know that? It's not provable, it's not testable. You're just saying that. Yeah, because it's that sort of thing. Why did you choose the left instead of or this side instead of that side? Determinism can't answer that question because the choices are identical. So the only way to answer that is you are autonomous. You make the choice based on the fact that you are able to just make the choice and be free from determinism. You don't get confused. You don't go, what choice do I make? You can actually make a choice. And the choice is there. Now, if a machine was going to make a choice, in a situation like that where the options are identical, it may just roll the dice and get, since it can't think, It'll just roll the dice and make the choice that way. He'll just do it at random. You can argue that, well, our brain is doing that then. You're making the random choice, and it's not really controlled. It's just a random choice. And, well, we're not a machine. We're more sophisticated than the machine. We're actually living beings. And why is life necessary? Life is necessary because it helps us to survive. Other things don't need to survive, right? An asteroid out in space, the forces acting on it are deterministic. Quantum physics shows us that not all the forces are deterministic, acting on something out in space, let's say, for example. But it is deterministic, which means it does react. It does have cause and effect type of relationship with the universe. It can't make autonomous decisions. The asteroid flying through space. It doesn't have any self-preservation needs or anything. So it doesn't need to have autonomy to defend itself. And what I mean by that is, if an asteroid's flying toward a planet, it can't do anything to avoid that planet. It's just going to crash into it. And it, you know, if it was aware, let's just say, it would know this far in advance, that its life would eventually end up as an object crashing into a planet, and it would know the exact planet, exactly when. It could narrow everything down if it knew its flight path. But life forms are self-preserving, so let's say that the asteroid had suddenly come to life. It would go, I need to do something to prevent myself from crashing into that planet. I need to preserve my life. What can I do? Suddenly I have choices. The asteroid suddenly has choices. Now, if it can't do anything like any physical activities, if it's just aware and that's it, then yeah, it can't do anything. But life has developed in such a way that we have abilities to do physical interactions with the universe. And this is a very interesting topic on how thoughts actually become actions. We take it for granted that our thoughts can become actions. It's an amazing thing if you think about it. Because thoughts can have stuff like contradictions. You can think about something and then something else that's contradictory at the same time. You can hold contradictory thoughts in your mind. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's called dissonance when you hold contradictory thoughts at the same time. But you can do it. It's an amazing thing. Now, contradictions don't exist in nature. Yeah, there's no contradictions in nature. But there are contradictions in our thoughts. So obviously it's the thoughts are separate from nature, because there are contradictions and fantasies and falsehoods and illusions and all that. Imaginations and things that don't exist in nature. Our thoughts are some amazing things. And objects made of stone are the result of our thoughts. We can tell that these things are made by us. They have certain characteristics that only a thought could bring about. Like, why is one point different than the other, and yet they're used for the same thing? They're in the same geographic location. You're hunting the same animals, using the same stones, using basically the same tools. There are slight differences. There may be different techniques, but there's differences in thought. That's why there are differences in shape. There's some autonomy there. The lifestyles are the same in many cases, yet they came up with different designs and different solutions for the same lifestyle. That requires some autonomy. If it was deterministic, you would have identical outcomes. Yeah, you can argue that there's subtle differences, so those subtle differences can compound and you'll get differences in thoughts and stuff. Okay, but then you could kind of measure what those differences would be. There would be a mathematical formula for understanding those differences. If it was purely deterministic, you might say, well, eventually we'll have a mathematical model for everything. We will understand everything, and we'll be able to predict your actions before you actually do them, depending on the situation. We shall see. We shall see if Chat GPT can predict our actions. Yeah. Because it's going there. You know that they're going to try to use it for something like that as a predictive measure for our behavior, or potential prediction, like the weather. We'll be able to predict people's actions like we predict the weather. So it gets kind of scary that they can say, well, before you even rob that bank, we're going to know that you have the intention in doing it. And since we believe in determinism, you're going to be doing it. So there you go. We're going to arrest you before you actually get a chance to do it. Yeah. That's what they want to do. Can't let them do it. Because it's a false line of reasoning. Life is not deterministic. Life is autonomous. And the opportunity to do something different is always there. Because you can choose not to do it. What's the alternative? That you must do it? There is no not doing. There's always a not doing. If there is a doing, you got to start out with the not in order for it to be done. It's not being done at this time, but you know, it'll be done. Well, I'm sitting here not doing it. What's causing me not to do it? If I'm going to be doing something in the future, what's causing me not to do it right now? You know, why do I wait? Or, you know, maybe I'll just, I could have done it 1 second ago, but I didn't because I have a little hesitation, and because I had a thought. Where do the thoughts come from? Sometimes they don't come from anywhere. They just pop up. And it's not at random either. It's just an idea comes in your head. I'm going to delay that action. I'll still do it, but I'm going to delay it. See what happens. But to come up with these discussions requires a lot of very careful speech, because you can always say, yeah, all these conditions you're talking about can be explained in a deterministic framework. Doesn't matter. Everything's deterministic. To not do it or to do it, it's all predetermined. Yeah, you can say it. But I'm going to come up with ways to debunk it. I don't care about supporting evidence for determinism. I'm going to look at the exceptions. Are there exceptions? We know that there are exceptions in quantum physics. And we know there are exceptions just based on the logical reasoning of the ability to choose. Like I said, the identical choice cannot be explained by determinism. Anyway, I think about stuff like that when I'm napping, if I'm not listening to music or whatever. And the choices we make when we're doing this gives us an idea of how autonomous we are. Managing risk, thinking ahead of time. We know the risks, right? It's an amazing thing that we can manage risk. It's an amazing thing. I think it's pretty amazing. We know that it might not work, right? But we manage somehow to make it work, or to just plow on ahead in uncertainty and actually come up with something that's useful. Sometimes there's luck involved, but we use that luck. We are not like helpless victims of it. We can use it. I think it requires a will that is free in order to utilize luck. Figure out ways that it could benefit the process. All right, so I'm getting to the end of my ability to do this particular piece without snapping it. It's refined enough that I can offer it in the auction. I just wanted to make sure I've got it. That was unfortunate there, but I'm just going to leave that. I can take off a few more lumps and stuff, but every time I try to thin it a little more, I'm taking more and more risk. So I had to use my free will to know when to quit. Yeah. To know when to not do something. Okay, good enough. Good enough. It's very nice. I like it. It is a little bit easier to knap than the stuff I heated up to 345. The 440, yeah, 440 is pretty good. That temperature is pretty good. I could take another flake this way because I have mass here to flatten that out, or I could take one from the base, shoot it up. I'm pretty sure I can run a long flake from down here, but I don't want to. I don't want to. Or I could do it from the other side. Anyway, I'll let you guys do it. Well, I think I'll make something on the next video. All right.